Welcome to Wine, Whiskey, and Words, Hurricane Edition. This is Brad,
This is Daniel.
and we're bringing to you this special episode because it's raining outside and we're all supposed to die.
Florida will be wiped from the map within
That's
hours.
actually what someone on Facebook said. It's like, everyone that stays in Florida, you're a numbnut. You're crazy for staying. And so Daniel had the great idea of said, let's just put together a little special episode and talk about what it's really like to plan for a hurricane, the preparations that we do, what's to be expected, etc.
So I do want to give you guys a heads up that this is not just anybody who's been in Florida. I grew up in Florida my entire life. Brad, you grew up in Florida? Or?
I'm actually a native Floridian. I was born and raised in Miami.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Jacksonville, so we've been around long enough to have seen a lot of hurricanes that threatened, that came, whatever. And I want everybody to understand we are not just blowing this off. We actually do take weather seriously. If you're in a coastal area or whatever, we do want you to take this seriously. But I just want to put it in perspective for people who don't understand hurricanes and haven't experienced that it's not all death and destruction. You got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, there's drinking involved
or
too.
a little whiskey. Actually, Brad, do you mind if I introduce the drink?
Talk about it.
So, what we're having today is a bottle of Glenmorangie. We pre-poured because the table we're at outside doesn't not conducive to our equipment, but it comes in a lovely little box. This is just the 12-year original, aged in bourbon casks. All I can tell you about Glenmorangie is they've been around since the 1800s. They are a true Scotland-based Scotch distiller. They've got a long history. They actually have quite a line of whiskeys. Highly recommend you check them out if you haven't. Again, we're having the original 12-year. There is an original 10-year, but we went with 12 because I don't know. That's what I felt like going with.
You know that when I want to say probably around 2005, 2006, right around there when I was starting to go into whiskey, going from wine, I went to Scotch, and Glenmorangie was one of the ones. Glenmorangie, Balvenie are ones that I would drink. I really don't do them anymore. I tend to go more for bourbon rye now, but Glenmorangie, I seem to remember, was just a solid drink.
So I think the first whiskey I ever had was probably a Tennessee whiskey. My family's from Tennessee, and Jack Daniel's obviously is kind of the standard early drinker whiskey. So I think I started with that, and actually Scotches, the first ones I had, I hated them. They tasted like charcoal, and I was really put off by it. But in time, I had a good friend who turned me on to Macallan, which is often a higher end Scotch, and this guy definitely was into it. And so I said, you know what, let me give this a try. And I've been branching out, and like I said, now I've learned that I do like some Scotch. Glenmorangie is one that I think I tried once. So it's been a while, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. Brad, you take this one.
One of the things that I tend to not like about Scotch is the peatiness of it, of which this one...
And that's that charcoal taste.
Yeah,
for those
this
that
one
don't know.
doesn't have as much on it. And by the way, if you're getting some weird sounds, it's the wind.
Yeah, you can probably see it a little behind us. There are no palm trees here, but they are nearby, and they're moving for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more wind going off on the side over here.
Yeah, so this Glenmorangie is a blended Scotch. It is not a single cask or anything like that, and it's very, very smooth.
I was going to say it's very mellow.
Yeah, I get a lot of vanilla with almost a hint of orange, which
you get the orange rind on the back.
Which, oddly enough, Morangie, even though it has orange in it and it's an orange bottle, it has nothing to do with oranges. I did find that out.
Okay.
I forget what Glenmorangie actually means. It's something lovely, I'm sure. Brad could look it up, but he doesn't have his phone handy. Never mind. Brad has his phone handy.
Let's ask.
But yeah,
what does Glenmorangie mean?
You're gonna have to.
It doesn't say.
It doesn't say. Even Siri does not know what Glenmorangie means. It's a secret
Serious,
bit of Scottish lore.
useless to me.
Um, so anyway, no, like I said, I think this is lovely, and this is probably a great Scotch for anybody who's been thinking like maybe I should try some Scotch.
This is a
But
great Scotch for anyone that doesn't like Scotch.
yeah, that's true. It does not have a lot of the notes that people traditionally associate with Scotch, but it's a lovely drink.
Yeah, I would drink this. This is
yeah,
solid.
like yeah, I probably will drink this.
So let me ask you, Daniel, what is your earliest memory of a hurricane?
So I remember playing outside in the street because the our streets had these like nice little gutter things on the edges. Many of your streets do, and they would get really deep, and the yard would get full of mud. And I remember playing with my GI Joes in the mud. That's my earliest memory. I don't remember which hurricane. I could not tell you, but I was probably 5 or so.
I remember I was about 6 or 7, and it was Hurricane David in Miami,
Okay.
and the pool overflowed. So, you know, speed forward some years later, I'm leaving Miami to go to Gainesville for college, and a week later, Hurricane Andrew hits Miami, and I don't think anything of it. I get a phone call from my aunt and uncle that live in the Vero Beach area a few days later, and they said, just want to let you know your parents are okay, blah, blah, blah. There's some damage to the house, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. I didn't think anything of it because I remember what Hurricane David was like. And then speed forward, a few weeks later, a few months later, when I get the full details, I found out that had I been there, I probably would have died because my bedroom got hit the worst.
Wow.
A tree went through the roof.
Wow.
My parents and my brother were huddled in a little hallway. I'm trying to remember when Hurricane Andrew hit.
It's
you remember
92 maybe?
When did Hurricane Andrew hit Miami?
So for those of you, go ahead, bud.
Oh, okay. So my brother might have actually been in Gainesville at that point in time.
Okay.
Because 92 is the year he graduated from high school. So he had probably left as well.
So I was actually very young when Andrew hit, and again,
I'm old.
growing up in Florida, especially Jacksonville is in a very fortunate spot in that it rarely takes a direct hit by a hurricane. I mean, we've been glanced many times in our lives, and we've gotten a lot of rain and some wind, but it's rare that Jacksonville takes a direct hit. So it wasn't until my adult years when I started to research hurricanes and understand, like, what are we actually dealing with here, that I realized just what Andrew did to Floridian culture, and the state as a whole when it comes to hurricanes. After Andrew hit Miami in a massive way and brought destruction even people who had been here 50 years hadn't seen. It ripped entire top stories off of buildings, knocked homes down. And it afterwards they actually completely rewrote the building codes in Florida.
The next closest thing to it would be to compare it to Hurricane Katrina, which hit New Orleans, or the double hurricanes that happened in, I want to say it was 2005, that hit the eastern central Florida area, more specifically like Fort Myers, Vero Beach area, because I know that my aunt, uncle, and my cousins and my other aunt, their houses were demolished, and it took years to rebuild over there.
And that's what people don't realize is, when these things hit, it's really serious. The problem is you get people like us. So, again, we're just full disclosure, we are 25 to 30 miles inland. We are not in a coastal area. We are not in an evacuation zone. We are in a very safe spot. I know it seems insane that we are sitting outside, in a hurricane, please understand if you are in a hurricane evacuation zone, get the hell out. Like it's not a joke. This isn't real. But I want to just put in perspective for people who don't really understand what a hurricane's like. That for the most part, um, very few people experience the full brunt of a hurricane. Brad actually is right now recording some winds, some videos of the winds to the side of us because you can't see those. We are not experiencing in any way the full brunt of this. We're actually probably in tropical storm level winds, and we're blocked by most of my house. And I promise you, my wife is inside, and if things get bad, she's going to come outside and say, "Get your ass inside."
She will yell at us.
Like we will be told, "Get your ass inside," and we will promptly end this in this episode.
But
But
and the reason also a lot of people from outside of Florida also they go, "Hey, we see the path that it's going. It's going to hit you. You need to prepare." But what a lot of people don't realize is that hurricanes are unpredictable. You don't know. Hurricane Andrew was supposed to go like this. Hurricane Andrew went like this and went, "Oh, I'm stopping and
Left
I'm
turn.
going this way,"
Yeah.
and then hit Miami directly. It was never supposed to go that way. So, like my mother, who will be listening to this, a few days ago, she texted and said, "Hey, do you want to come down with me to Miami?" I said, If I'm going anywhere, I'm not heading south. I'm heading east because if I want to, if it's coming from the Gulf side, I want to be in a position where it's going to at least cross over some land. If I'm going to Miami and it decides it really likes me, then I'm screwed.
yeah. So I want to back up a little bit, and like we're already in this right now, but I want to back up a little bit and talk about like preparations. Like how, Brad, what's your approach when a hurricane is coming in our general direction? Maybe not necessarily a direct hit, but let's say it was. Like this one, this was anticipated to be a direct hit on us. What's your approach to preparation?
For me, I want to make sure I have plenty of wine. Um, no,
Fair.
which I do anyway. But I want to make sure that I have at least some water and liquids to last me a few days, because it's just me. That's what I'm concerned about. And like I had a few bottles of water. I filled up my Yeti or whatever it's called with water as well. I want to make sure that I have enough food or snacks to last me a few days. Being through as many hurricanes as I've been through, I know generally what to expect if I was closer to the water, and it's getting a little bit more windy now.
Yeah, you can probably see it
Um,
behind us. I'm looking at it as it blows towards me, and it's getting a
Yeah.
little windy. So
Yeah.
if we end abruptly, I am sorry. We will continue this conversation
Yeah.
later.
But yeah, so I'm not super concerned given where we were. Now, had I been even like 15 miles closer to the water, it would be very different.
Yeah, I will say if you live anywhere near the water, whether it's inland waters like a bay or a river or the ocean, especially, if a hurricane even seems like it's coming your way, you need to get out. Like this is not a joke. They are very serious when they say if you're gonna stay, write your name on your arm so that we can identify your body. They are not joking because a hurricane can wipe out your entire home. It can wipe out an entire community if it hits wrong. And like Brad said, they're unpredictable.
Right. And those people that are saying those things, those are the experts. Now, the people that are making comments on Facebook and whatnot going, "You Floridians need to get out, you knuckleheads." I'm like, you're just commenting based on your perspective, never having been through it, not knowing where we are, and given the projections, it was a Hurricane 5. Yes, it was a 5. When it got closer, it became a 4. Now it's a 3.
Yeah, as
Uh,
we're sitting here, it's weakening.
Right. And if as a 3 from where we're at, it's not that bad. Now,
I wouldn't want to be out in it.
No, no, no. And it all really depends on what's going on around you. Do you have a lot of trees that might be uprooted? Do you have a lot of things that might fly around? You want to make sure that if you are living in the area, that you do go ahead and move any and all furniture that might be outside, trash cans, bring them inside, anything like that that might be lifted up by the wind.
And I will say, like, going back to preparation. So what Brad said is absolutely correct. We bought some bottled water, which honestly you can buy a couple cases at the beginning of the hurricane season, throw them in the closet, not think about them, but you got them. You got them on hand. Make sure you got batteries and flashlights handy, so you know where they are. You don't have to have them charged up next to you all the time, but just have them just in case the power goes out. Make sure you have a way to contact people for as long as you can. Keep your stuff charged, your cell phone and things like that. But for people who don't live in flood-prone or coastal areas, a lot of it is just basic stuff. There's like general emergency preparedness that you have to do. It's not the same level of preparedness that someone who lives on the beach, for instance, has to do.
Yeah. Now, do buy food.
Absolutely. Canned goods.
Do buy water.
Right.
Do not buy 3 months worth of toilet paper.
But buy 3 months worth of beer because you never know.
That
or
could go
or liquor
in a
of
day.
any kind.
Yeah, but it kills me when you see like people are buying up toilet paper
And
There's
bread.
no need.
Like you need one loaf at most. I mean, if you got 3 kids, all right, maybe 2 loaves.
I got those Arnold Thins.
Okay.
I got 1 packet of that. That's good.
Yeah, like that's the thing is, I think it gets blown up because you see Jim Cantori in the winds and everything. But the reality is,
Holy shit! There's Jim Cantori.
yeah, he's standing in my backyard right now. But no, 99% of us, even with a direct hit by a major hurricane, actually our local guy Dennis Phillips today was saying, "Hey, look, don't panic because even if this hits your area direct on, there's maybe a 5-mile stretch where the worst winds will be felt. And those are gusts, mostly gusts. Now, there are sustained winds that are very high in that eye wall. But that eye wall isn't that big, and it's intermittent. You need to be prepared. I hope you've left if you're in an evacuation zone. But for most people, if you live under a big oak tree, you probably should have planned better. If you don't live under a big oak tree or around places where there's a bunch of debris that'll catch flight, you probably don't need to worry. And speaking of debris, if you are in a hurricane area, anywhere in Florida really, and a hurricane's coming, no matter where you are, if you have stuff outside, secure it. Put it in a place where it's not going to be picked up because the wind is stronger than you think it is, even with gusts, and it can blow around. And that's the biggest risk to inland people is somebody's trampoline, for instance, gets picked up and blows into your house, and then your roof's gone. But again, that's probably the biggest risk inland other than flooding.
Yeah. Also, make sure that you have all of your devices charged.
Yep.
I make sure that I have my computer charged and my phone charged to full. That way, not necessarily that I'm going to use my computer, but that were I to lose power on my phone, I can use my computer as a power source and charge my phone back up with that.
Yeah. I often say to friends, because most of my friends are around the country, many of them don't understand what a hurricane's like. All they see is the headlines. They see Katrina. They see Andrew. They see these massive hurricanes. They see the loss of life and all these things. And I always tell them, look, native Floridians, except for the ones in flood-prone or coastal areas, until it's a 4, we're keeping an eye on it, but we're not really worried about it. It's like a dog behind a fence. That vicious dog behind the fence, you're like, all right, well, I need to make sure it doesn't jump the fence, but...
It's like a Jewish mother. She's going to yell at you a lot, but it's not likely she's going to beat you.
Brad, there are things you can say that I'd get in trouble if I said.
And then next time I see my mother, the frying pan comes out.
Yep. I don't envy that visit.
Yeah.
But no, like I said, I'm not diminishing the importance of preparedness. I'm just saying, like, the number of people who are really devastated by these, um, usually it's coastal areas. Hopefully they've chosen to evacuate. And I'm getting blasted. You can't see it on the film, but I'm getting blasted by the side winds from our patio. So sorry if I keep looking that way. But no, the devastation happens usually in coastal areas or people along a river. Again, those waters can rise really unexpectedly and very high. We luckily, like newer neighborhoods, are generally engineered to handle the flooding. The water flows into wetlands and things like that. So
The wind is definitely picking up.
yes, we will be posting some videos of the winds. We may be cutting this one short here soon if it doesn't calm down a little. So, Brad, like, let's talk about what we've seen today. The saddest thing about hurricanes to me is either the dumb things people try to do, like recording a podcast outside, or the cruel things. Unfortunately, in our neighborhood or in our area, right down the road, early on today, somebody had tied a dog along the interstate to a fence in water that was up to the dog's chest, and it just tied him to the fence and left him. Gratefully to our FHP, they saw it and came in and rescued the dog. But people just, I don't know if it's they don't think or if they're just cruel or what, but like people do some weird things with their pets.
I mean, it's people sometimes will get pets to make themselves feel better without any concern to the pets themselves, and I think that's what happens that's the result of when those kind of people get pets. That the dog reminded me of the old. Oh, jeez. All right. The dog from the Budweiser commercial.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Spuds McKenzie, right?
Spuds McKenzie. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think it was a bull terrier, and just had him chained to the fence.
Yeah, just and like I said, the water had honestly had been there a while, and it's just disturbing. But again, I'm very grateful to the FHP for seeing it and rescuing the dog. But
You know what? This would be great with chocolate.
yeah, absolutely.
It reminds me. It has that orange note.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the chocolate with orange. Not to get on the sidetrack, but I just remembered that.
Oh, good. But yeah, so like again, going back to preparedness, plan for your pets. Look, just like you would children, if you have pets, you wouldn't leave your children at home. You wouldn't leave your children tied to a fence. I mean, I get it. You want to sometimes. I've got a daughter of my own. When she was little, she could make me crazy. But I didn't leave her chained to a fence. So you wouldn't leave your child there. Don't leave your pets there.
Yes.
See,
In some
I have a knack for
instances-
saying things that you just can't argue with.
No, I think in some instances, I would tie them to a fence.
Yeah.
Um,
But only in good weather is it appropriate to tie your child to a fence.
right. Fine, whatever.
The sun is shining.
Yeah.
The birds are chirping.
It reminds me of there was an episode of Saturday Night Live with Mike Myers where it was him and Nicole Kidman, and they both played the parts of the like elementary school kids,
Okay.
and she offered him chocolate at one point in time, and he said, "I'm not supposed to have it because it makes me hyper." She goes, "What's one little piece going to do?" And he gets it, and all of a sudden he jumps up, and he's tied to the monkey thing, and then you see him going like this. He's going like this, and it's being dragged behind him. So
I'm popping some video here, and every time I turn the video on, the camera dies, and I just don't think I'm going to get a good video.
the wind.
Yeah, the wind,
wind
the wind dies down. Sorry.
Yeah, the same thing happened to me.
Yeah, so like the winds are very gusty, so it's steady blowing, and you get these really intense gusts that are hitting us pretty hard. But again, we're inland. If you're inland in Florida, in a place that's not prone to flooding or pretty safe, yes, we are taking a mild risk sitting outside, but it's much safer than it seems. And again, I just want to put it in perspective that we're probably doing all right.
Ditto.
So, Brad, one of the things I think is really interesting is talking about after a hurricane. Now, we are in an odd position because the Tampa Bay area got hit pretty hard by some of the storm from a week and a half ago?
If that.
Yeah, about 10 days ago, Helene hit.
Helene, yeah.
And oddly enough, it hit pretty hard in Florida because that's where it took land. Tampa was actually spared the worst of it.
It was
we
it
got
was hit a little bit further, a little bit south but it was once we've been talking about on the coast, where we're at. I barely got any wind or rain.
Yeah, I wasn't here, but everybody said, yeah, it was fine. And most of the time, a hurricane comes through, and again, that's why we don't panic. We don't panic. Again, honestly, in life, you should never panic. We talked about this last episode. Always take a moment, respond. Don't react. Because react, that fight or flight response, I always tell my daughter, fear makes you stupid. It does. Your body reacts on impulse, and impulse is often wrong.
You know what? I never panic as long as I have my towel.
42, man. 42.
42.
So, no, like I said, if you don't get that reference, read. Just do some reading. But no, Brad, you disrupted me and now I forgot what I was going to say.
It's what I do.
So, just heard somebody has not secured their outdoor furniture.
But
we just heard a clang from behind us.
But to go back into what you were saying, when you're looking at the aftermath of the hurricane, it really depends on the area that you're in and what occurred. But people want to get on with their lives. They really do. They want to feel a sense of normalcy. Now, you're going to have those areas that are greatly affected, and it's important that we as a community get together and try to help out those that are in need. For those that aren't as affected as much, if you're in the service industry like I am, we want to make them feel good. We want to make them happy. We want to make them feel as if nothing has happened. But for those, as I said, who are affected, what can we do to help?
Absolutely, and one of the things that's hard about a hurricane is it's generally not localized. Like, yes, it's local to you, and the people in your area can be suffering, but as bad as things were in Florida, Helene in particular traveled up an area that's not really usually feeling the worst from a hurricane. The mountains of Tennessee and North Carolina, in this case, they had received a lot of rain before, and because of the geography largely and the amount of rain, they experienced flooding that you just never see, and were devastated. And that's why, this recovery, it's one of those times when we all have to group together and look at it and say, hey, how can I help? Whatever it is, maybe the Red Cross, maybe whatever you can do to help. If there's any way you can, I mean, actually going back to Andrew, my aunt actually went down and helped with the recovery after Andrew years ago. She didn't have a lot of money. She just went down and did what she could, handing out water, handing out paper towels, whatever it is, because every single person who gets involved helps in some way. And there's a lot of need, and I think that's the saddest part about a hurricane is just it's widespread. Even though it's only certain people, to those people it can be devastating.
Yeah, you have to just get out from yourself. I think that the majority of us have, I'm not going to say a narcissistic tendency, but we have a sense of self. But there's the extremes. You have those who are very narcissistic, and then those who all they want to do is help others. And most of us, I think, lie somewhere in between. And we have to kind of just get out there and go, hey, I want to do for these people because you know what? Number one, it's right. Number two, I might be in a position someday that I might need some help, and I would like someone to be there for me as well.
Yeah, I always say, no one wants to prepare no one wants to depend on someone else until that's all you've got. We I joke about not worrying about it until it's a Category 4, but I'm actually prepared. Um,
Well,
I
I mean, the thing is that anyone could go. You didn't do this. You should have done this.
You made your choice.
You're an effing idiot.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to get past that and go, hey, what can I do to help? And you're going to learn from this experience.
Yeah, I mean, people make mistakes. People do poor decision making, and doesn't mean we shouldn't help them. And because, like Brad said, the golden rule, however you want to look at it, platinum rule, whatever you want to call it, is if do nice things to other people, because sometimes you might be on the receiving end, and you want to make sure that you're being treated as you want to. So I think I miffed the golden rule, like just shredded it to hell.
Golden rule.
Golden rule. It's
Yeah.
gold. Solid gold. Look it up. It's there.
Do unto others as you would do unto as they. I don't remember.
Do the things.
Yeah, do the things.
Like, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
I had a good friend of mine that told me, just don't be a dick. And my daughter bought me a sticker to put on my water bottle. It says, don't be a dick. And, when somebody's suffering, help them. So I guess that's probably...
Yeah, well, I tried to, but Jamie wouldn't give you the divorce.
I did not say that. No, I'm happily married. Jamie jokes, I think, about divorce all the time.
As she's sitting over there.
I know. She's brooding.
Yeah. She did record us a little bit.
She did?
You didn't see her taking she either took a picture or recorded us or something.
Look at my idiot husband. Yep, that's kind of her thing.
Yeah.
So, well, anyway, Brad, anything else about hurricanes that we haven't covered?
They're generally big.
They are big. They're really, really big.
Yep. But the thing is with that is that when you're looking at the hurricane approaching, you could have the eye of the storm. The eye of the storm, you can correct me if I'm wrong, you're not going to get a whole lot right around there. It's really the outer bands where you're going to start getting a lot of the things going on.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing. So at this point, as far as I know, the storm is still offshore. It might be pretty close to shore at this point. But from 11 o'clock today, I had the news on. I'm not usually a news watcher. I find that TV news just manipulates your brain too much.
So this, you can kind of... Whoops, I forgot you can kind of see over there.
There's either a spider on Brad's phone or he's looking at the radar.
Yeah.
But most of the early risk was high winds in mid-Florida and tornadoes in mid-Florida, because those bands are really dangerous. And that's one of the misleading things about a hurricane is you have all these bands that they'll hit, so it gets really bad, then it calms down. Then it gets really bad, and then it calms down. And even if you get hit by the eye wall can hit you, and it was really, really bad, and all of a sudden, like, you look up and the sun's out. And it can seem really safe, but it's definitely not if you're in the eye. The eye is where the worst of it is, and God bless you if you get hit by it, because it can do some really nasty things.
I hate getting hit in the eye.
Later, Brad, I'll hit you in the eye.
Okay. Promises.
So.
All right.
Well, anyway, like I thought it was important for us to have this podcast because, A, we're together, and Brad and I are looking out for each other. We said, hey, Brad, come on over. Like, don't be by this alone. This way, if something happens, you're together.
Actually, it's Jamie that yelled at me to come over.
I invited Brad, and then Jamie was like,
he said if I was bored.
Yeah.
I'm an introvert. I'm never bored. And Jamie said, basically guilted me.
Yeah, get over there.
Yeah.
So, but we're together, and that way, if something happens, we've all got each other, and we're good. But that's what we have to do, is we have to depend on each other. We have to look out for each other. We have to call our friends and be like, no, dude, you're in an evacuation zone. Get the fuck out of there.
Plus, my mother is much happier that I'm over here.
Good.
Yeah.
I like to make Mom happy.
Yeah. Maybe one day you'll decide to meet her.
You're never going to let me live that down. I had the opportunity to meet Brad's mom, and I had to go out of town.
Yeah.
So.
Had to.
Anyway, so I guess if I have one, like, parting thought, it's this. hurricanes are not something to be ignored or trifled with if you are in an at-risk area. Again, I cannot reiterate this so much. If you're in an evacuation zone, don't fuck around. Just leave. Like, find a way. Usually states, Florida, I know, like Florida's offering like free Uber rides to places to get out of an evacuation zone. There is a way. Look for help. Find it. Ask somebody. Do whatever you have to do if you're in an evacuation zone. Take it seriously. But that being said, don't panic. Keep in mind that if you're not in one of those critical danger zones, with proper preparation, you're going to be okay. And most of us are going to be okay, even if we didn't prepare 100% perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, there's natural disasters that happen all over. If you're typically on the West Coast, you have earthquakes. You can't do anything about it. You just have to make sure you're prepared when the time comes that something happens. In the Midwest and whatnot, you have, you know, tornadoes that will pop up. You have things that you can do to prepare. And likewise with hurricanes, you know generally when it might be coming and what you could do to minimize the impact. And it's really when you're on those coastal areas when you need to get out. If you're not on the very much the coastal area, it's not going to be quite as bad as the world might make it, seem to you.
Coastal, any waterfront. I want to be very clear. Like the Tampa Bay area is unique because we have a lot of waterfront that's not coastal. So any waterfront area or any low-lying area is with a hurricane.
When I
for
say
sure.
coastal, that's what I mean. Anywhere
Yeah.
you're on the water.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So,
All right. Well, Brad, I appreciate you being willing to do an impromptu emergency episode of our.
you made promises to me.
Well, I got you scotch.
Okay. Okay. Scotchy, scotch, scotch, scotch.
I love scotch, scotchy, scotch, scotch. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been another episode of Wine, Whiskey, and Words that you weren't expecting. We hope you are safe wherever you are. And we're glad you could join us and look forward to having you listen to another episode.
Sounds good.
All right. Cheers.
All right. Cheers. Clink.